Our meeting will come back to order. Our recess is over, and now it's time to work again. First thing I want to say is thank you to all of those who testified this morning and to members who've brought forth amendments like Representative Kunish-Podine. Hi. Sorry. I was just going to mention that you made a good point in one of your amendments, and Representative Mariani and I have spoken, and we're going to be talking about some of this, so on the effective. So, point well taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Representative Mariani's not here yet, but we did visit about the Bly amendment that would not allow someone who serves in the position of bargaining with the, or bargains the contract. And we have agreed that on his behalf, and I wish Representative Mariani were here, but on Representative Bly's behalf, we're going to withdraw that, and we're going to remove it from the bill. And Representative Mariani will be working with me, of course, on this proposal. So please bring your concerns to him. But that then will be an official withdrawal of A9. Oh, my goodness. The next amendments are authored by Representative Mariani. Okay. So, members, let's have a little bit of discussion. We'll just take a little break from amendments until Representative Mariani arrives. So, questions from members? Concerns that you want us to look at?
Yes. Our folders are empty.
Oh, maybe the DE is still coming. Maybe they forgot. Yes. Well, of course, that's why you're mute. Here they are. Oh, those are the amendments?
I think we're done.
Okay, we'll have another brief recess. Our meeting will come back to order after that second recess. Representative Mariani, I already did transact that discussion we had, so with all due respect, I hope it was okay that we withdrew the, on Representative Bly's behalf, I withdrew the amendment and told the committee that we will be removing that language from the delete all.
Madam Chair,
Representative Mariani.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the conversation we had during the recess, and that's correct. And so thank you. I apologize for holding up the committee, and I look forward to continue working on this issue with you.
Thank you, Representative Mariani. And you do offer the A10 amendment. Representative Mariani.
Madam Chair, yes. So, Madam Chair, this amendment has to do with the general rulemaking issue relative to the new board. As you all know, currently the board has the ability to do this. And I do understand the thinking, you know, in terms of why this is not being proposed in the new framework. You know, we're creating a much more clear, if you will, set of expectations and guidance in state statute. I do think, however, Madam Chair, you and I have served on this committee for a number of years, that there are always things that come up in this important profession. And so I think that was really wise at one point where, and I suspect it predates us, where general rulemaking authority was conferred in order to make sure that this board can consistently adjust itself to the constantly emerging needs of students and the professionals that come before us. So, Madam Chair, I would encourage us to be able to return that ability of the board. I don't think we need to fear, this new board stepping outside of any of the work that we wanted to do, because I do think that the language before us provides much clearer direction for this professional board. But I just think this is an important tool for this body to continue to have, and I would encourage your support.
Representative Mariani does offer the A10 amendment. Representative Mariani, I think we need to have further discussion on what actually these words mean. I'm afraid they're a little bit too broad for us to accept today. I think that's a discussion we need to have as we move forward, because I wouldn't want it to suggest that we're not going to put some of this in statute. And with that fear, members, I would have to, at this time, recommend a no vote. Representative Mariani, any response?
Madam Chair, I'll tell you what, why don't we also work on this? We got a pretty good spirit going on here. I do think there's some important things for us to consider, but we're going to have several cracks at this issue. So
Representative
I'll
Mariani
withdraw this at this
withdraws
moment.
his amendment. Thank you very much. The amendment, A10, is withdrawn. And you have the next two as well, Representative Mariani. So the next
roll.
one, Representative Mariani offers the A13. Please explain your amendment.
Madam Chair, as you know, right now, so I would move the A13 amendment. Madam Chair, as you know, the governor can reappoint the current, the governor has the ability to appoint current board members. The language before us would not allow the reappointment of current board members to serve out the rest of their terms. We heard earlier from the department some management challenges that the legislation proposes. I don't think we heard from the department objections to the direction of the bill, but I think there was some real, honest concern about the ability to time in, assuming we pass this legislation, to time in the work. There's all sorts of very practical things that are at play here, staffing issues in particular. And in the midst of all that, we're going to have a brand-new board. You've served on the board in the past. I work with boards. I can tell you that it's really vitally important to have consistency and experience in a governance body. And I don't think that it's unreasonable for us to be able to have the ability of current board members to continue per the governor's reappointment, and then to steadily phase in the configuration of this board per the language in the bill. So I would really encourage you, for no other reason, just to make sure that there's some really good constant experience present at the board that can provide some history and just solid experience about being a board, doing this work, that we not remove the ability of the governor to reappoint current members to serve out the rest of their terms.
Representative Mariani, I agree with you to a certain extent. However, I would not want the status quo to continue to exist. I understand the argument that I heard the department make this morning about institutional memory, and others as well. But would you be willing to withdraw this so we can work on this?
Madam Chair, you're in a majority, so I suspect that's probably another invitation to make sure we get this right. I do think, Madam Chair, I am willing to do that, but I do think it is important that there is continuity, and we're only talking about serving out the rest of the terms here. There's no attempt here to distort, the new configuration of the board here. Experience counts. You can bet that the small staff at the Board of Teaching is going to be leaning pretty heavily at its experienced board members to be able to do the will of the legislature, even as we're taking them in a slightly different direction. So with your promise of working dutifully with me to make sure that we provide some good, strong stability, I'll withdraw this amendment at this point.
Madam Chair, may I make
Representative Ward.
a suggestion? It feels a little like we're talking about some hypothetical kinds of things, because I think it would be helpful if we knew what the dates are. How many people are turning over 1st of July, if that's what it is. And so how many new seats? So rather than just kind of all or nothing, or, abstractly saying we'll blend this somehow, but I think when we have that conversation, to have the information of numbers of people that will be changing and how soon the others will, how many, 3 in another year, that kind of thing. So maybe you can structure it a little bit differently so there's a gradual change, but working on it with that in mind, I think would be helpful.
And Representative Ward, I think they'd be great homework for you. So you'll report back to us on what you found out about the terms and whose expires when. So with that, Representative Mariani withdraws the A13 amendment with the promise that we're going to work together. Representative Mariani, you have the last amendment, the A12. Representative Mariani offers the A12 amendment.
Madam Chair, I would move the A12 amendment. And you and I did have a conversation. We are going to move ahead with a vote on this one, but however, there are 2 components to the amendment. And so, Madam Chair, I'll move to divide the A12 amendment so that we can take one up and then discuss the other part as well. So I would move that we we divide the amendment, basically, I believe I'm correct, maybe council's help here. So the first part would be 1.1 through 3.32.
Correct.
And then the second part would be 4.1 through 6.19.
Correct.
And I'd like to move the first part of that division.
Representative Mariani moves to divide the A12 amendment so that we will vote first on 1.1 through 3.32. Explain that part of your amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this is an amendment that was brought to me by Ed Allies. We may want to ask them to come up and help us with it, but, quite frankly, what the amendment does is it does some working off of existing language. It does some clarifying language that directs the board to be able to focus on the criterion that already exists in state statute relative to alternative teacher licensure, and removes, therefore, the ability to do to add other criteria to those alternative teacher licensure issues. It also does a separation from the higher ed requirement for alternative teacher licensure. I know that that's been a controversial piece here over the years. I had a bill many years ago that kept those 2 together. We subsequently moved some language that allowed for certain programs to be able to have that kind of separation. I think we've been kind of taking baby steps toward this direction as we've tested out the efficacy and professionalism of certain alternative teacher licensure programs. And so this just takes another step in that direction. And I'm going to stop before I, because I don't have my notes in front of me, before I say things from memory that I forget. And I would ask our colleagues from Ed Allies to fill this out.
And before we call on Mr. Cross and members, this is on page 42 of our delete amendment. It would delete section 21 and insert what Representative Mariani is offering in the division of the A12. Welcome, Mr. Crossan. Please explain. Say your name for the record first and explain the concept of this and what the language says.
Yes, Madam Chair. My name is Joshua Crossan with Ed Allies. This legislation, or this amendment, was out of the work of Ed Allies as well as Troy Haugen from Greater Monroe, Minnesota, as well as the Board of Teaching. And not very often do you see Ed Allies working very closely with the Board of Teaching coming up with a great piece of legislation like this. But basically what this does is it clarifies our alternative teacher certification laws so that our alternative teacher certification programs can actually function and work as alternative teacher certification programs. It would mirror the standards and the expectations of teacher preparation and allow alternative teacher preparation programs to actually be alternative in nature. It also provide some clarification around certain provisions in the law. Currently, in the state of Minnesota, we don't have a single alternative teacher certification program simply because the laws just don't allow for one. So this really gets to the intent, the spirit of the laws that were passed a few years ago. It also, in addition to all of that, brings back the efforts of the chair, of Madam Chair's bill, so that it aligns our alt-cert language to the Professional Education Licensing and Standards Board. So it is a needed fix in order to also change our tiered licensure programs. We'll also need to make these changes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
Madam Chair.
Representative Mariani.
Madam Chair, so again, in current language, we have approval of alternative teacher programs based on board-adopted criteria, but we also have criteria in state statute. We have 6 criteria that range from 200-hour instructional phase. We're adding observed classroom experience, research-based, results-oriented approach, strategies to combine pedagogy with best teaching practices. There's a lot of thought that have been crafted into state statute relative to holding these programs to high standards. And so the idea here is to really kind of loosen up, if you will, the leash, the harness, I'm not quite sure what the metaphor is, that we've had on these programs. Again, because we've got some mileage underneath us. We have criteria in state statute that should assure us of quality standards. And again, I would be remiss if I didn't repeat that, we're also removing the mandate that there be a partnership with a college or university as well. So members might want to talk about that. So I just want to be real clear about what we're doing here. But it really is about unleashing the power of these alternative programs that we've increasingly been experiencing some very good results here and also nationally. I would say, Madam Chair, one final thing is that I do think, while this does a heavy focus on modernizing, if you will, alternative teacher licensure programs, that we should not stop. And it's not in this amendment, but I just want to say this. We shouldn't stop our efforts to consistently align the vision and direction of this legislature with what we expect out of our traditional teacher prep programs. And I hope that as we continue to evolve this policy area, that we spend time and energy in also creating more modern ways in which we can have higher expectations of our traditional teacher prep programs, and also providing some freedom of movement for them as well.
And thank you, Representative Mariani. And members, this also would delete Section 22 on page 42, and that continues into page 43 and ends on page 44, deleting Section 26. And then in Section 27 on that same page, the added language would occur. Mr. Crossan, would you come back to the table and clarify to what extent this amendment and this deletion and new insertion would assist our teachers of color as far as getting into alternative pathways, maybe through Grow Your Own, paraprofessionals moving forward? Would you comment on that? Because I think that's sort of at the heart of this.
Right, absolutely.
Mr. Crossan.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. At the heart of this legislation is to allow schools to be able to hire, and for teachers who are mission aligned to those schools to be able to teach in certain programs. It also increases teacher diversity, or it has increased teacher diversity in other states. Again, in the state of Minnesota, we don't have an alternative certification program that exists, but in states that do, alternative certification programs have increased teacher diversity 10, 20, 30-fold. Teach for America, for example, has 50% teachers of color as part of their programs. Relay, which is a residency program, has about 60% Black and Latino teachers. The New Teacher Project has about 60% teachers of color within their cohort. So as that relates to our Minnesota numbers at 4% teachers of color, this would just be a remarkable shift in how we educate our teachers for the classroom.
Are there questions from members? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the division from 1.1 through 3.32. All those in, no, we're not going to go there. We're just going to hear the explanation of the amendment. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails, and the amendment as divided has been adopted. Representative Mariani, would you like to withdraw then the rest of this amendment and maybe consider it in finance?
Madam Chair, I would. However, I do want to say a couple things very quickly.
Please do, yes.
So we had this conversation in recess, and this obviously is an appropriation piece. We're going to have an opportunity in finance to be able to come back with this. There's also a couple of other bills that we can look at if this bill continues to move forward by itself, and so there might be a more appropriate place to put this. However, I do want to say this, and it goes to your last question of Mr. Crossan. While I do acknowledge the growing diversity of the programs that Mr. Crossan mentioned, some of which I know well, and so I have no doubt, no question of their sincerity of being contributors to diversifying our teaching corps. The bottom line, members, is unless we put money in those efforts, that's just simply not going to happen. Or let me better say it, it's only going to happen in dribs and drabs. We're at a really small percentage in our state. I just got back from the state of Oregon. They're at 10% teacher of color. They pretty much look like us demographically, and yet they're a smaller state, so they have a higher percentage and they have a higher number of teachers of color and American Indian teachers in their classrooms. And part of, this isn't the only thing, part of what makes that happen is that they're actually investing in that. And so the second part, and I know very few of us here serve on finance, but that second part has to do with targeting communities of color specifically for making investments in things, all the things that we talked about, the scholarships, loan forgiveness, supports, et cetera, just like the state of Oregon is doing, a state with much smaller population, but easily twice the percentage and many more teachers of color than we have. So it's unfinished business. It's good that we've got this policy language up front and move forward in this bill. We're going to have to make this kind of investment if we're really going to move the needle in the state of Minnesota. So I'll be bringing this back in Finance Committee. I would look for your support, Madam Chair, as we make that case with Chair Loon and with the committee there. And at this point, then, I would withdraw the second part of this amendment.
Representative Mariani withdraws the second division of the A12 amendment. Discussion, members, before we move to adopt the delete all as amended to House File 140. Discussion. Please continue to share your thoughts with both Representative Mariani and me, and with Andrew Hassick, my committee administrator, and with DFL research, because this is a work in progress. We don't know what the Senate file looks like yet, and of course, that's with whom we will probably have a conference committee. And this now will go to government operations because of the change in the board makeup. So, hearing nothing, members, I'm going to move that House file, that the delete all amendment, the DE1, be attached to 140 officially, and would ask for a vote on that. So the DE1 as amended now will become a part of House File 140. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails, and House File 140 is intact. Is there further or discussion now?
Madam Chair?
Representative Mariani.
Just very quickly, just for my sake and the sake of the members, we had a little bit of discussion about this as well, and I think we're kind of also trying to figure this out, but what can you tell the members at this point? Obviously, it's going to government ops. There may be another committee that may want to look at it. Is it the intent of the author to be able to move this bill independent of an omnibus bill? Are we going to see it again in this committee, perhaps? Is it going to move on to finance, et cetera?
Members, and thank you, Representative Mariani. This bill now I'll re-refer it to the Committee on Government Operations. Public Safety has asked to see it because of the mandatory reporting, and then it will be re-referred to the Committee on Education Finance. It will then move separately, is my plan, but probably also included in the omnibus bill, so we'll get another chance in the policy omnibus bill perhaps to discuss it as well.
Okay.
So it might follow two paths. So, members, I had that vote and I didn't say that we had to re-refer it to government operations, so just to clarify, House File 140 is re-referred to the Committee on Government Operations, so that's cleared up. Any other comments? Stay in touch. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.